Okay guys, let's go ahead and get started. So this class is on handling errors in Rails. So full disclosure, what we're going to go over in the class today isn't going to make your apps run any better at all. It's not going to make them go any faster. It's not going to make them save data better. What it is going to do is make the user experience a lot better. And that's just as important as making an app that works. To start off with, I'd like you to please clone down that repo to which I just linked. That's the Tuner Rails Errors Validations repo. So please do so. I'll do it up here as well. Cool. So there I am. And then just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'd like everyone to drop and recreate the app. So the first thing we're going to do is rake db drop. Make sure you have the blue elephant running. If you don't have the blue elephant running, it's not going to work. What would be the next thing I do after rake db drop? Rake db create, yeah. db create. My computer's going to be a little slow just because I'm screencasting this one using QuickTime, which bogs down my computer a ridiculous amount. So we're going to have lots of opportunities to pause for questions while this thing's sorting itself out. All right, so rake db drop, rake db create. What after that? Rake db migrate. And how about after migrate? The very last thing, seed. Yep. Don't always have seeds, but we will in this case. Create, migrate, seed. I was trying to think of a cool acronym to remember all these things by, and the best I came up with was DICMIS, which isn't a very good acronym. It's like Christmas, but with, well, never mind. Anyway, cool. And so let's just make sure it's running. Type in Rails S, and if you get the starting up message, then you're all good to go. Is anyone getting, well, okay, there we go. That's progress. Is anyone getting any errors? All right, the second check is to make sure it actually shows up in your browser. So if you go to localhost 3000, should get this thing. Anyone not getting that? Anyone erroring out? I want to fix it now before we keep on going. All right. All right. Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do here is, well, let's just talk about this app for a second. So we have this app, and it works perfectly fine, but it breaks pretty easily. For instance, the easiest way to make it break is to try to go to an artist with an ID that doesn't exist. So if I go to artist/8675309, as you can see I've done a couple times up there, I get this thing. Record not found. And that's not really an edge case. I mean, this is going to happen a lot on your app. You're going to have deleted an artist or something, or a user will have deleted an artist, and they'll try to go back to the page for it, and they're going to get this big error. Or maybe your user is going to get bored, and so they'll just start typing in random IDs, and then they're going to get to a page like this. And for us developers, this isn't so bad. We can sort of figure out what's going on here. But it makes for a pretty bad user experience. I mean, they're just sort of trundling along, and then suddenly they get this big red thing flashing at them. So it would be nice to find a more pleasant way to let the user know what went wrong and what they can fix. Based on what we know so far, what would be a way of doing that? How could we make a message show up in the console? I'm gonna, excuse me, not in the console. Well, okay, we'll start off with that. How can we make a message show up in the console? Like if something goes wrong. Puts, yeah, sure. I don't really know why we would want to do that because it's only going to help us. It's not going to help the users. There's something we could do in our controller to make this work. Let me pull that up. Yeah, pardon me if I swear a lot in this class, but QuickTime slowing down my computer really grinds my gears. All right, so what's something we could put in this show route to like control for the user looking up something that doesn't exist? How can we do that? Yeah, sure. What would that look like?
That artist, or that ID doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So then the
sure. So I'm just pseudocoding. So like if artist doesn't exist, then do one thing, else this is not real code. Again, do another thing. Yeah, we could do that, but that's a little more trouble than I think it's worth. It's not very dry, for one thing. If we want to do the same thing on the show page, then we're basically going to need to copy and paste this exact same piece of code. It would be nice if there was a more sort of like one-size-fits-all approach for catching errors. Well, let's go to something that works so far. So for instance, this create one. We've talked a little bit about messages when things don't work. But it's also nice to get a message when something does work, to see like, hey, you successfully created an artist or something. What's a way we might be able to do that in here? Well, how do we make anything in the controller show up in a view? What do we need to do to make a variable show up in the view? Yeah, create an instance variable. We could do something really fancy, like message equals you created an artist. And then put that in the view. We could do that. And then put something like, let's see. In here, we could put something like message. Yeah, all right. And then if I go and create a new artist, oh, whoops, I shouldn't have put that in index. I should have put that in show. I'll create Bob the artist. And, well, now I got this message not showing up. That's interesting. Why doesn't this message show up? This message right here. I defined an instance variable. I defined this app message right there. Why doesn't it show up on the page? Does what? No, it's just redirecting to the artist show page. It's just going to @artist. I shouldn't have done anything in index. I did that by accident. Why isn't @message available? Yeah, so @message is defined in create, and create is redirecting to @artist. That's the exact same thing as the show path. It's redirecting to /artist/ whatever its ID is. In this case, it looks like it's 6, I guess. So this is redirecting over to show. And the thing about instance variables is this instance variable only exists inside this action. It doesn't exist inside any other action. So if I do @message here, I don't have @message down here. If I do @message here, I don't have it up here. So that doesn't really work. That @message, it's not going to persist. It's not going to continue down here into show. We've seen two main ways of storing user data so that it is available from page to page. One of them you learned about in your previous class. The other one we've been doing for a while now. What's the first way we store user data? Nope. Nope. Even simpler. Nope. Databases. Yeah. So that's one way to store data is in the database. And we could just like create a table for error messages or something and put all the messages in there. That would probably work okay. But why might we not want to do that?
Well, it doesn't really make sense to have those messages in your database.
Well, why wouldn't it?
Well, your database is for all the entities, but why would you go through the trouble of drawing DRG like, and then you throw an error? What does an error mean? Context of error.
Right. Yeah, why bother going to all that trouble? It's inefficient to go in the database. I mean, it's fine if you're just retrieving data about an artist or whatever, but to do messages all the time, that would be really annoying and slow down your app a lot. So we're not going to do it in the database. What's the other way of storing data so that it's available from page to page? Some of you guys mentioned it. I heard some people say it. So you learned about it in your last class. Sessions. Yep. Sessions. That's actually what we're going to do here, is we're going to use sessions for this. Rails has a built-in way of storing messages in sessions called Flash. It's called Flash because, well, the idea is you sort of flash a message for a little bit. Let me show you an example. Whoop, no. Well, that's all the homework I haven't graded yet. That's actually fine. Cool, so here's my to-do list. Don't worry, NA just means I haven't graded it yet. It doesn't mean you're in trouble. Let me sign in as WDI student. Oh, well, actually, here's one right now. This is a Flash message. That's what that looks like. Notice that if I refresh the page, just going to the exact same URL, it's not there anymore. If I sign in as test WDI student, who almost never comes to class, actually never comes to class, so don't be test WDI student. So here's another one. This is another Flash message telling me that I'm signed in. If I go to the exact same page, it goes away. If I submit this form, it goes back up there, but if I refresh the page, it goes away again. So the theme here is that all these Flash messages, they exist only for two different actions. Two different actions. So when I say that, I mean, for instance, if you create an artist, you might put a Flash message in here. It would look something like Flash notice. And then that's going to create the artist. That message will be stored, and it'll be stored through show. But then whatever action you do after that, it no longer exists. So this is the thing about Flash. Session variables just are stored indefinitely. A session variable is going to be stored until you tell it to not be stored anymore. A Flash variable is going to be stored only for two requests. That's where it gets its name from. It's called a Flash variable because it's there and then it's not, just a second later. So it's not Flash as in like, it has some cool sort of like flashing in and out effect. You'd have to do that with JavaScript. That's a completely different thing. It's called Flash just because it exists for a very short amount of time. So what that would look like, go ahead and put it into your artist controller actually. I'll select out the code you would use for that. So it's pretty much exactly what I did here, but I'll just make sure it's the same thing. So this is how you set a Flash variable, or how you set a Flash message. Flash is a hash, and so we're just setting something inside it the way we would set something in any other hash. Is just the name of the hash, which in this case is Flash, hash the Flash, and then the key to which we want it to be associated. Okay, so that sets it, and then in, let's say, your, well, I actually used the wrong link in the lesson plan, but that's okay. In your artist show page, so that's views/artist/show, put that bit that I just slacked out, this thing. This Flash each do type message. We'll talk about what those different parts are in a second. First, I just want to show that it works. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try creating an artist. So I'll do Steve. I'll create an artist. And there, bam, I get notice Steve was created. This is a flash message. As soon as well here, I'll open it in another tab. As soon as I refresh that page, it goes away. So that message just stays there for one request. All right, so let's talk about what actually is going on here. We set this type thing. So what this is doing right here is it's going through each flash message. It's going through every single message in that flash hash. And then with each one, we get the type and we get the actual message. So the type is what you set over here. You did flash notice, and notice is what shows up over here. If you did flash banana hammock, then banana hammock would show up over there on the page. You can use any key you want. However, it's considered good practice. It's recommended that you only use notice and alert. That's what's recommended. And let me show you why. I asked the other class just right now and realized I didn't give them a whole lot to go off of. So I'm going to demonstrate it really quickly over here. Try putting this in here, what I'm about to select out. So that is almost the exact same thing, except instead of doing type, like just as its own piece of text right here, we're putting type inside the p tag so that instead of just saying notice Steve was created, the paragraph is going to have the class of notice. So I'm going to do that, and then also put this in your CSS. You can probably see what I'm going for now. So I'm going to go to my CSS and do that. Just down at the very bottom. All right, so we changed two things. We made the type go into the class instead of just being some text printed out on the page. And then we added in just a tiny little bit of CSS. Now, when I go and I create a new artist, Elmo, I get this thing, a nice blue text. If it was an alert, I would get it in red text. So this gives a really easy way of styling flashes according to what they do. Any thoughts as to what the difference between notice and alert is? They don't do anything different. The only difference is just in their semantic value. What's the difference between a notice and an alert? Or when might I use them? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you say it again, but just a bit louder?
Alert is like an error.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas a notice is probably just something that worked right. And so you can see here that I'm putting my alerts in red and my notices in blue. So that makes a really easy way for that to happen. Any alerts, I can super easily make them all show up in red. Any notices, I can make them super easily show up in blue. Super straightforward. Okay, so presumably we would want to have errors show up on any page. We'd want to be able to show flashes on any page. I could just go and copy this on every single page where I might want a flash to show up, but that's not very dry. What would be a better way to do it? Where could I put this so that it shows up on every page? Do it?
Layout.
Layout, yeah, sure, let's do that. So I'm going to get rid of it here. And then I'm going to go to my application layout, and I'll just plop it down right there. And there we go. So there are now no changes on the show page. There are some changes on the application layout page, which is just putting in this flash thing, just copying it over from the show page. And now this should still work perfectly fine. If I go here and I do, I'm running out of names, Oscar. There, it still works just fine. Oscar was created. BT King. Excuse me. Any questions so far? I feel like Flash is pretty cut and dried, but anything? Cool. And just to tidy things up a little bit, you can save yourself a line of code by using this sort of shorthand Flash. You can actually just do notice whatever you want your message to be. So artist name was created. Just put that right there. And then there, you can just eliminate a line of code that way. This thing, it only works with redirect to, and it only works with notice and alert. So putting it in line with the redirect like this, that only works with redirect to, and it only works with notice and alert. If I do banana hammock colon there, then that's not going to work. Cool. Anything? Last class had a lot of questions about validations. Maybe I didn't teach it well. Validations? I meant Flash. Validations is what we're doing next. All right. Well, that's pretty much all we're going to talk about with Flash. So if y'all are feeling okay with that, we can go on to validations. Are there any questions or anything? Cool. Well, I'm pretty tired, so I can only imagine how you guys feel. So why don't we just break until 3? So it's 7 minutes. Stand up, walk around, wake yourselves up, and then we'll just keep on trucking.